What's going on, everybody? Reed for the Love for the Game podcast. Appreciate you clicking on this video. Today, we have the first episode of my new show, Late Hits. We bring on Colton from Ono Sports. Get into a little bit of debate about some topics related to the world of college football today. Would appreciate a like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below of what your underrated hires of this 2026 coaching cycle were, and who you think could be an underrated coach going forward at their new stop. So let's get right into the video with Colton. Welcome back to Love for the Game. I'm your host, Reed Napper. Thank you for joining us today. We have a new show on the channel today, Late Hits, the final word. And who other than to be my first guest on the show, Colton of Ono Sports. How are you doing, my friend?
Great. I'm great. This is very exciting.
For sure. Appreciate you coming on. So basically the rundown of the show is going to be a similar debate style show to ones you would see on, major network television. So basically the topics we have today, Sac State and North Dakota State joining the FBS and their impact on the overall FBS landscape. Scheduling dilemmas seen throughout college football. We've seen a couple teams forfeit future matchups with other Power 4 teams. So we will be discussing that. And also, who are some underrated coaches from this past coaching cycle? First topic we're going to get into is the FBS's newest team, Sacramento State and North Dakota State. Colton and I have both done content surrounding this news, so we won't delve into the specifics of it. But Sacramento State joining the MAC and North Dakota State joining the Mountain West, both making the jump from the FCS ranks. North Dakota State has been a powerhouse within the FCS for at least a decade plus. Sacramento State has had some recent success, mainly since 2019, but hasn't had real consistency at the power level. So I guess the main question I want to ask you first, Colton, is, what is going to be the general impact, at least let's go with Sacramento State first. What's going to be their general impact on the FBS and the MAC as a whole? Because, their closest conference opponent is 2,000 miles away.
That's the biggest thing surrounding this push into the MAC from the FCS level. I'm actually at Sacramento. Everybody here is pumped about it, as you can see in the background. All the screaming fans, you can't hear them because my mic is so good. The fact that they joined the MAC is the biggest question mark. I don't feel like the MAC is consistently a conference, especially in the group of 5 level, that has consistent teams that are at the top. Like last year, we saw Western Michigan. In years past, it's been Ohio. A team like Sacramento State, that is now just kind of recently been pouring tons and tons of money into this program. I think they will be able to make an instant impact in the MAC, whereas if they join, say, the Mountain West, they join the Pac-12, it might be a little bit more difficult just because of the talent levels and the more proven success in those conferences, like with Boise State. Fresno State has been good in recent years. Colorado State, teams like that. With Sacramento State joining the MAC, with all the money they have in their program, I think they could easily contend it within the next 2 or 3 years. It'll be an adjustment that has to be made jumping from the FCS to the MAC to the group of 5 level. But I am very excited for Sacramento State. But personally, I think it's a good move for their program. Not sure exactly how successful they'll be immediately, but with any team that isn't a North Dakota State, Sacramento State, not historically super dominant, just recently come into play in the FCS playoff and big donors willing to pour a lot of money into it. I think they could be successful pretty immediately. Like I said, I don't know if it'll be this year though.
I totally understand what you mean. I actually lean the other way with this. I think I didn't say it in my preface, but they are going under a new head coach in Alonzo Carter. They lost their former head coach, taking the offensive coordinator position at Colorado under Deion Sanders. So I feel like it's going to be a lot of turnover at one time going into this 2026 season. New head coach, new level of football, new conference, player turnover, staff turnover. It's just going to be too much at one time. In the immediate, I feel like Sacramento State's really going to struggle in year one in the FBS. I feel like some of the MAC opponents that they're going to face is going to be one, the competition level is going to step up. Two, I feel like just the style of play that they play in the MAC is not going to, fare well for Sacramento State. So I feel like just stylistically, it's going to be a challenge for them. But if they do make the jump within 2 to 3 years, like you were saying, I could understand that because they are pouring tons of resources in. In the current landscape of college football, it is possible to make a one season turnaround. Indiana poured tons of resources in to one guy in Kurt Signetti brought tons of players in and were able to make one of the greatest turnarounds in all of sports. So I think it is possible within a 2 to 3 year time range, but I'm going to just specifically on the immediate impact. I think they're really going to struggle. But as for North Dakota State, they are a team that could really be making a push in the Mountain West. Numerous FCS national championships. I think North Dakota State has a chance to be a real contender in the Mountain West. Maybe even a dark horse in the group of 5. I mean, we could get into that if you wanted to, but I feel like North Dakota State is well equipped to, make a real push here in year 1.
I mean, North Dakota State is a team that, what I was going to say a second ago, is already kind of there in terms of talent acquisition and in terms of scheme. They've been there. We saw it a couple years ago against Colorado, where they're hanging in with a Power 4 team. To me, the jump for North Dakota State is a lot less heavy than Sacramento State, just because Sacramento State isn't really at an FBS level as a program yet. Like I said, I think they could get there. North Dakota State, in my opinion, has been ready for that jump for the better part of half a decade at least. FBS teams, especially a team like Colorado, like I said, who went on to be pretty solid in 2024. And on top of that, their style of play, like you said, it honestly better fits the MAC than Sacramento State. If you switch the two teams, I think it makes a lot more sense, not geographically, but nothing really makes sense geographically anymore. But North Dakota State is a team that is going to be able to wear down defenses, especially group of 5 defenses. They have the talent in order to shake things up offensively, especially in the group of 5 level. They're definitely a team that's built to win immediately. The biggest thing with them is just the grind of an FBS schedule. If that will be more tasking for a team like North Dakota State, who is used to, making the postseason in the FCS, but not playing these high-level teams every single week. If they can go into a Mountain West conference and immediately withstand the grind of that schedule, not saying the Mountain Wests are world beaters, but definitely better than, any FCS level conference. If they can withstand that conference schedule and really grind it out for all 12 games of the regular season, I think that will prove that they are here already. What we could see in year 1, if they aren't ready, is, a 5-7, a 6-6, something that isn't necessarily, I guess it did prove to be harder than expected. But still, definitely, if you're winning 6 games at the group of 5 level when you're formerly an FCS team a year ago, I still think that is all signs point to you're going to be successful in the coming years.
I totally agree, because if you look at some of the teams that have recently come up from the FCS level, Missouri State, Delaware, Sam Houston State, Kennesaw State, they've all had, relatively decent success already. Kennesaw State, for example, has already won their conference in the second year at the FBS. So definitely, I feel like they could definitely make the jump immediately. Is that sustainable though over, a 2-3 year period, especially in this world of NIL? I'm not sure about North Dakota State and the FCS level, but the NIL world might be completely new to them as well. So are they willing to, really invest in the program? Whereas at the FCS level, you might have not had to invest as much, just solely because you're getting, lesser talent, for lack of a better term. So it's gonna take, a lot of resources that they haven't had to pour into the program before, at least to this point.
For both of these teams, the biggest thing, like you said with Kennesaw, is the adjustment. Once you get to the FBS level, kind of acknowledging where you are as a program. If you aren't exactly where you want to be, like Kennesaw State did last year, they go out, fire their head coach who led them to their first FBS win. Obviously not a great season, but everybody's kind of like, oh, that sucks for him. Kennesaw State, not a team you would imagine would win their conference in year 2, but they go out, get their guy. And the biggest adjustment for these teams will be figuring out how to exist in this landscape rather than just winning football games. Missouri State this year, their head coach gets poached. Now they have a carousel, and it's their second year in the FBS. You weren't really expecting necessarily there to be a huge carousel around your program, which obviously is not very fun for a team like Missouri State, who's, like I said, figuring out how to exist. These teams have to figure that out in the first few years, which is why I'm not super, super high on either of them. North Dakota State more so than Sacramento State. I am higher on them, but it isn't just about winning football games. If it was, I wouldn't really be worried about either of these teams. But as we just saw, a team like Kennesaw State can go from, okay to bad in the FBS level to they just made one really good hire and now they are at the top of the Conference USA, seemingly.
The next topic we're going to be getting into is scheduling dilemmas. Numerous teams have canceled series or, longtime rivalries that have been sustained for years upon years and, are canceling just solely because of the bulk of conference scheduling. Some examples of this: Alabama and West Virginia were supposed to play a series starting this coming season. That was canceled. Georgia and Louisville were also supposed to play a scheduled series coming this year. That did not happen. Notre Dame and USC pause, at least for now, their longtime rivalry, replacing USC with BYU for Notre Dame. And Texas and Arizona State just canceled a series that they were supposed to play, a home-and-home series. So, are we going to see teams consistently, backing out of, home-and-home series because we're going to 9-game conference schedules in most of these power conferences?
I would say most likely. I think if you're an athletic director, it's a no-brainer. If I'm the athletic director at Texas and I have to play Ohio State this year, and that's a potential loss in the out-of-conference, last year we lost 3 games, and that was with an 8-team conference schedule. Really don't see any purpose in scheduling an Ohio State in the future because you could schedule 3 FCS teams, you can schedule a group of 5 team, and you can get by with relatively easy games going into an absolute onslaught in conference play. That is what matters the most in this day and age, in this modern college football landscape. The committee has shown us it does not really care about results towards the beginning of the season. If Texas beats Ohio State and they are solid down the stretch and they are in the picture, it might help them, but that is a very rare scenario. You would much rather have 3 easy wins to start the year or 2 and then 1 in November. For whatever reason they do that. They schedule some random northern Iowa in November, which, I hate that. I wish we would get rid of that. That is another big thing. But with the SEC specifically moving to 9 teams, any SEC athletic director that doesn't reschedule the beginning of their schedule, they are actively handicapping themselves because if you lose to an Ohio State and you start the year 5-1 and then finish with 2 conference losses and you're 9-3 at the end of the season, you're not going to make the playoff. We just saw it with Texas. Texas lost to Florida. They couldn't really get anything going.
Yeah.
So if they had gone 10-2, if they didn't schedule Ohio State, we could be talking about a Texas team in the playoff this year. The Florida loss is still bad, but you can excuse 2 conference losses rather and get them in, as we saw for a couple of other teams this year. For other conferences who already have 9 games, I hate it. I just personally hate it. We see USC, Notre Dame. That's a big one that should just exist. I get why you don't want to schedule out of conference for those teams, especially with USC. Notre Dame, it's just like they don't play a tough schedule every year, so why not?
No.
For them, they're going to win 10, 11 games probably and make the playoff. With them, I understand also why, because now they have the automatic bid if they're inside the top 12, which for them completely annihilates any reason to schedule tough competition. Because if you're Notre Dame, you have the brand recognition on top of just being a very, very talented team. You can go out against Syracuse like they did last year, score 100 points, and then the committee looks at you like, oh, these are a shoo-in. And it's a whole different topic about how they jumped the shark with the Notre Dame thing. They left Notre Dame out this year. That was seemingly the correct decision for Miami. Notre Dame doesn't make the playoff, but Miami makes the national championship game, which wouldn't have happened with these new rules. For Notre Dame, I would schedule 12 group of 5 teams because there's no way a 12-0 Notre Dame isn't inside the top 12 and doesn't automatically get a bid. For Big Ten teams, same thing as the SEC. It sucks to see that just because we love these matchups. There should be a higher reward. There should be a higher reward for a team like a USC if they do beat Notre Dame or if it ended up being scheduled and then they did beat Notre Dame, for a team like USC who already has a 9-game conference schedule in the Big Ten, one of the best conferences, to also schedule Notre Dame. If they win a lot of their conference games, say they go 10-2 with the extra win against Notre Dame, that should be valued more than, say, a Big 12, maybe a Texas Tech team who plays Illinois State, Sam Houston.
I mean, a lot of teams specifically in the power conferences, I feel like we're about to see them go in a direction of what Indiana did the past 2 years. Just schedule G5s or at least FCS teams your first 3-4 weeks of the season, and then play your conference schedule, go undefeated or 11-1, and make the playoff. I feel like we're going to see a lot of teams go in that direction just solely because we are adding on the conference games at the end. But I do agree with the point that you made. These are the matchups that we like. We want to see these matchups out of conference. We want to see USC and Notre Dame play every year because it's been a rivalry continued on for centuries at this point. We want to see Georgia Louisville. I was looking at going to, and then they announced that they were canceling it. Like, that would have been a really intriguing game, especially because this coming year it was at Louisville, which I feel like would have been a completely different environment for Georgia to go into as an SEC team, used to those environments, and to go into Louisville, Kentucky for like a 3:30 or night game potentially, like would have been great. I feel like just as fans of the game, we want to see these big time matchups out of conference for sure.
Another thing that it affects these teams with, I mean, completely apart from just talent level against the teams you're playing, like you want to play group of 5 teams, but you also don't want to go into an SEC schedule, a Big Ten schedule beat up. You get these lower G5 teams, these FCS teams, and potentially pull your starters in the first half and then just play backups. Your attrition going in SEC play is without question. And that's another thing, like we said with Indiana. Indiana had great attrition this year. They had a couple injuries throughout the playoff, but throughout their schedule, we didn't really see too much. We saw Elijah Surratt go down for a little bit. That's opposed to some of these other teams in the playoff, some of these Big Ten teams, some of these SEC teams who did play better competition to start the year. And you saw it take more of a toll, because when you play in Ohio State or you play in Alabama adversely to a Tulsa, you're going to have to play your players. And that's potentially that's more snaps from your starters throughout the season, whereas you'd rather them get that in-game experience to start the year, get them warmed up, and then get them in a good rhythm going into conference. So if you're a team, if you're an athletic director, if you're a coach, top to bottom, players, I know players want to play, coaches want to compete, but if you're looking at it from a logistical perspective, from any level, there is actually no reason, there's no reward that we've seen from the committee to schedule these out of conference tough games. And from an attrition perspective, from just a winning perspective, there literally isn't a reason to schedule these teams. So I don't blame any of them, although obviously I hate it.
I am kind of surprised that these schools are canceling these series, because it would be nature of the higher ups in college football nowadays to be like, oh no, you're gonna play this series, because you know what that means. I feel like these schools are, kind of just babying out, honestly. Like, I don't know, like, I understand it from the perspective of what you're saying with, they want to be able to keep their rosters, as fresh as possible for conference play. What if we just give a higher incentive for these games? Just make it X amount of money goes to the winner, or, whatever the pool, like the player pool, like the NIL player pool goes up X amount of money, or, the committee like puts extra emphasis on, say, USC beating Notre Dame out of conference. They put extra emphasis on that, along with going 10-2 overall from a Big Ten schedule and beating Notre Dame. Like, they get extra, a boost when it comes to the committee rankings.
You brought up money. So I want to pose to you a hypothetical that it is what is going through these athletic directors, through these staffs' minds. And that is, say, these are just random teams. Say you're Missouri. You're kind of middle, top half of the SEC, but still towards the middle. You're Missouri. You statistically probably going to win 8 to 10 games. If you win 10, you're probably in the playoff, or you're at least on the cusp.
Mhm.
If you're Missouri and you're thinking about, oh, we need to schedule Michigan for the out of conference, and there's a lot of money in that, especially if with Michigan coming to Missouri, with Missouri going to Michigan, there's a lot of money to be made in that matchup. If you're an athletic director, are you thinking, well, we can make a lot of money from playing Michigan? Or are you thinking, hey, we can sacrifice a few dollars now and play Indiana State and then possibly make the playoff and then go make a ton of money in the playoff? So it's all sacrifice. It's all, we're going to sacrifice playing that cool game, getting fans in the stadium early. We're going to shoot for the playoff. That's the trade-off there. I think in terms of money, it's not, I wouldn't say it's AD's just being like, okay, we don't want to play tough teams. I think they're strategically removing these teams to get towards the biggest moneymaker in the sport currently, which is the playoff.
Our last topic on today's show is going to be breaking down some of the most underrated coaching hires from this past cycle. The first one that came to mind for me was Colin Klein of Kansas State. I feel like just stylistically, his time at Texas A&M was, offensively, they were pretty strong, especially with Marcel Reed at the helm. And now he goes back to his alma mater in Kansas State. Shout out to Colin Klein. He was one of the best players in Kansas State history, Heisman runner-up. Like, he is the face of Kansas State, basically. And now that he takes over as the head coach, I'm presuming he's going to be the main play caller offensively. But I feel like stylistically, with Avery Johnson still at the helm in 2026, I feel like he matches what Colin Klein's offense is to a T. Avery Johnson similar to Marcel Reed, still needs to work on some of his passing mechanics, but I would still put Avery Johnson as a better passer than Marcel Reed, in my opinion. So I feel like stylistically at Kansas State, it's a great fit, at least in year one with Colin Klein and, the offense that he's going to be able to run there. So I feel like Colin Klein is one of the most underrated coaches of this cycle so far.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm not super high on Kansas State in year one under Colin Klein, but I definitely could see with the talent they retain if they were towards the top of the Big 12. My first one, actually, it rhymes. Also an offensive coordinator, formerly last year. I really like Will Stein of Kentucky. I think we've already seen Kentucky kind of buy into the Will Stein hype, and why wouldn't you? Will Stein has a proven track record at Oregon the past few years, developing quarterbacks mainly, having elite offenses. And if you're Kentucky, you see that, and you're willing to pour a ton of money into it. You're trying to replicate, obviously, probably not to the level that Oregon has been the past few years, but definitely how good their offenses have been. See them work out immediately. And on top of that, I mean, it's just, you've had Mark Stoops for the past 100 years. It is replacing complacency with a new invigoration. And the perfect guy, in my opinion, I said this before any of the coaching firings really happened, when those first started to roll around. If you're a team like Kentucky, take a chance on a good coordinator, a guy who can recruit, a guy who has track record with a skill position. Will Stein, I think, could take Kentucky, and it is a very tough schedule, as it is always in the SEC. But I think, honestly, with the talent they bring in, with the buy-in they have in year one under Will Stein, I could see them making a bowl game, which I think should be the goal for Kentucky, seeing as they've been kind of in that range, but always kind of a low ceiling or moderate ceiling to very low floor team for the Wildcats have been the past few years with Mark Stoops.
The next one I had on my list was new South Florida head coach Brian Hartline. This is another first-time head coach taking over for the Bulls of South Florida, replacing Alex Golesh, who went to Auburn. But when you think of Brian Hartline, you think really great recruiter at Ohio State, wide receiver the amount of talent, just even specifically at wide receiver that he brought in at Ohio State, is elite. He's one of the best recruiters overall in the country. Now taking over his first coaching job at South Florida, we've seen in this first transfer portal class, he had the top portal class in the G5-6 realm for South Florida. So I feel like coming into year one under Brian Hartline, if he is to be the main play caller, which we saw last year at Ohio State, they were really dynamic with the wide receiver group that they had at Ohio State. If he's able to replicate that as the main play caller at South Florida, I feel like South Florida is going to be a real contender for the G5 spot in the playoff. I currently have them as my favorite, but then again, it is February 21st, so we have no idea what these teams are going to be after spring ball and going into fall camp. I feel like South Florida got a steal in Brian Hartline and what he can bring to the Bulls in Tampa Bay.
To piggyback off that a little bit, Hartline, who he is what I was referring to when I said an elite position coach and a good recruiter. That's who I had in mind. And on top of that, I think when we first heard the news that he was taking the South Florida job, everybody was kind of like, huh? Because he seemed like a guy who was going to immediately get into the Power Four in a head coaching gig, which I would not have blamed him, but it makes a ton of sense. South Florida is a team this year who is very, very good. The talent pool in South Florida is the biggest thing, in my opinion. You could potentially
he has experience in. He has experience in that,
exactly.
In that area
and
too. Yeah.
You could potentially see in the next coming years, instead of a Malachi Toney going to a Miami, and I mean he's been amazing there. You could see a guy like Malachi Toney, very highly rated, be like, hey, this guy has gotten 7,000 wide receivers to the NFL. He's one of the best wide receiver coaches, on top of being able to recruit. So why not go down to this level, to the American Conference with Brian Hartline? And that talent pool that he's going to have at his disposal is going to be interesting, specifically because of the wide receiver talent that comes out of South Florida. Like I said, they could see an influx of higher tier wide receivers go there just because Hartline is there. And that is going to absolutely juice offenses. We've seen it at Ohio State when they kind of struggle on the offensive line to get leverage in the run game. You can just spread it out to your 8 5-star wide receivers, and that essentially becomes an extension of the run game on these screen passes that they use so heavily. We could see that just like a claw machine, taken up from here, drop it down into South Florida, work immediately, because South Florida is already one of the more talented teams, like you said, at the Group of 5 level. So I agree. Brian Hartline, amazing hire. It's underrated. I think everyone kind of understands how good Brian Hartline is, but still one that not a ton of people nationally are talking about. Another guy, I think, though, that has been at the Group of 5 his entire FBS coaching career, Memphis hires Charles Huff from Southern Miss. Obviously, he leaves Marshall after winning a conference title there, which was very unexpected. Marshall kind of did him wrong a little bit. He goes to Southern Miss. Southern Miss, not a good football program traditionally, especially in the past 10 years. He goes there, and they weren't world beaters, but they definitely were out of the depths of the college football world. For Memphis, to get a guy like that, they are a team like Tulane, like South Florida that we were just talking about. They consistently have one of the best talent rosters in the Group of 5. To get a guy like Charles Huff, who has been able to do it with less talented rosters and get that upgrade, I think that it will bring them back to the heights that we saw prior to Ryan Silverfield. I think with Charles Huff now, who's proven to be able to do more with less, he's going to thus, usually we think that, but it isn't always true. But I do think in this specific scenario, Charles Huff gets implemented into the Memphis program and is able to do more now with more.
Totally agree. Charles Huff is a proven program rebuilder. You even go back to a previous stop he had at Marshall. He won 10 games there before taking the Southern Miss job, and then proceeded to bring everyone with him to Southern Miss. So I totally agree. Charles Huff is definitely, one of the more underrated, signings, hires of this cycle for sure. And let us know down in the comments below who you think the most underrated hire of the coaching cycle is. Very curious to see what you guys think about this overall cycle in general, and who you think could be some standout coaches going into 2026. So our last segment of the show, the final word. This will normally be a rapid fire question, one word answer type of deal. But for the off season of college football, we're gonna get into some trivia. Just a quick rapid fire question proposed to the guests, and they will propose a question back to me. So Colton, your question today on the final word. Since the year 2000, only 3 defensive players have finished in the top 2 of Heisman voting. Who are the 3 players?
Ndamukong Suh.
No.
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 Ooh, his Chase Young.
No.
No. Aiden Hutchison was.
That's one.
That's one. Okay, I knew he was in the mix. I didn't remember him being top 2, but I mean, makes sense.
Runner up in 2021 with Michigan.
I could have sworn Ndamukong Suh was top 2. The fact that he wasn't, I mean, that's insane.
I definitely was not expecting that for sure. I would have put him up there.
We'll take a hint, but don't make it too. Could I ask for a hint, like what the hint should be?
You can ask for whatever hint you need.
I would say, is it pre-20? Are the other two pre-2010 or after 2010? Right.
Both are after 2010.
Okay. That helps me. Oh man. This is Downs. Downs has been
unfortunately
solid, but not Downs.
Yeah.
2010. Let me think earlier 2010s.
One of these players was a two-way player.
You're counting Travis Hunter?
Travis Hunter in 2024.
Okay.
Yep.
See, I thought about Travis, but I didn't know if that, I mean, I guess that should count. That he did play defense and he did win
play
it.
Defense. Yeah.
So that's 2. And then the second, give me the conference.
Do that. That would give it away.
Oh, it's gonna. Okay, so
I can give you the year.
Sure.
2012 as a linebacker.
Oh, I know who. Now his name is escaping me. Notre Dame. I know. Notre Dame. Manti Te'o.
There you go.
Yeah.
Colton. There you go. The 3 players since 2000.
You're gonna have to edit out 10 minutes of me just going. My question to you, Reed.
All right, I gotta lock in. I
have it written down because I couldn't remember it is multifaceted. So there's it's not confusing, but there is depth to this question. Okay.
I gotta listen. Okay.
Which FBS teams in 2025, so specifically last year, had head coaches who were both a former assistant under Nick Saban at Alabama and previously, before their current head coaching job, a Power 5 head coach?
Ooh. Power 5. See, I was automatically thinking just previous head coaching experience too. Okay. Why am I blanking on his name, bro? He's not it either. He wasn't on Saban's set. Dude, why? Was Elko? Oh, Sarkisian. Steve Sarkisian. Goodness gracious.
There you go.
Steve Sarkisian.
And he was at two former Power 4 schools.
He was at USC, yeah.
That's one.
Not Elko. Oh my goodness gracious. Lane Kiffin, bro. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Dude, that is so bad.
One of the most famous Saban guys.
What am I doing, bro?
It happened.
That will do it for this episode of Late Hits. Colton, I appreciate you once again coming on. Thank you for stumping me with that trivia question. That will really show my ball knowledge to the viewers. I appreciate that. Any final word for you?
Thank you for having me. At O&O Sports is where you can find me. Reed has appeared on the channel plenty of times. Yeah,
for sure. Go give Colton a subscribe and like the video. Again, comment your underrated Power 4 or just head coaches in general for this upcoming season. We will catch you in the next episode. Appreciate it. See ya.